You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Cole.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Sometimes I grow so tired. But I know about one thing I got to do. I ramble on. Now the time is now. Sing my song.
Welcome back to the Golf Company Detroit Studios. Jim Coyle with you here as always, Indiana Sports Beat, and now joined by our good friend Todd Leary. Todd, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm good. How are you this morning?
Great. How's your first full week back to being a Hoosier?
Man, it feels good being back in the home state, so I'm excited about it. And we had a good week here in Evansville, so everything week one went down perfectly.
Well, the sun's shining. It's not raining today, so you must have brought something to the party.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. Sunshine just follows me around. You know that.
That's why they call you Mr. Sunshine.
Yeah, right.
Hey, I got a question into the show from Bobby. He had two questions, actually. One was going back to the game after the Duke loss at the Final Four 92. The first conversation that you had with Coach Knight, how did it go? What did he say? And was that potential tying shot supposed to go to you?
Boy, he's digging deep into the archives early in the morning. But
I'm telling you, man.
You know, that I only played in that last minute of that game, probably mostly because we needed points, we needed shooting right away, and we had guys that had fouled out. Obviously, a lot of Indiana fans remember that. But after the game, one-on-one conversation, Coach Knight just said, "Hey, let's build on that for next year. We have big plans for you. You'll be a big part of what we have going on for the next couple of years." And so that was just kind of I don't know that there was a ton of conversation about actually what happened on the floor. It was just kind of what he does at the end of every year, and he kind of, talks to each player individually about what they expect out of them for the summer and the following year. So that part of it was fairly customary. He doesn't dwell too much on what has happened in the past when you can't change it. Obviously, if we had won the game, there might have been some different conversation, but we didn't. So, and as far as the final shot, none of the three shots prior to that were scheduled to go to me either. It just, if you saw when they touched my hand, they went up pretty quickly. So they didn't let me touch the last one because they know that thing was going up as fast as I could get it.
Trigger finger, baby. Quick trigger
No
finger. And it's funny, his other question is something that I was thinking about it may have been yesterday, I think. I don't know why it popped into my head, but it's kind of fortuitous. Norm Ellenberger. What were your thoughts on Norm Ellenberger? Man, I hadn't heard that name for a while.
Yeah, Norm was kind of like a buddy. He was one of those coaches that when you didn't understand why things were happening and the way things were going down, Norm was a guy you could kind of talk to a little bit, and it wouldn't go straight back to Coach Knight. It wouldn't. You could have a little bit more of a conversation with him rather than him being a true part of the coaching staff, which he definitely was. He was a good guy. He was a player's kind of coach, and I always liked Norm a lot. We had the place where I worked in the summertime. The owner of the company there at Steel Beard Electric, Gary Crum, he was real good buddies with Norm, and they continued their relationship way past when Norm left IU and all that. So I kind of kept up with Norm through my buddy Gary Crum, and it was a situation. Norm was just a good guy. He was one of those guys you needed on the staff, especially a Coach Knight staff, because he was just a guy that I think the players felt like they could talk to a little bit more.
That leads me to a question. How important was that to have with Coach Knight being the figure that he was? How important was it to have a Norm Ellenberger, someone you could talk to and have a little trust with, that it wasn't going to go back straight to Knight?
Yeah, no, it was extremely important. And it was, I think it's something that, you're kind of putting your player, from a player's perspective, we understand what they're doing. They're kind of putting their job at risk, because that's not something Coach Knight would have thought was cool, or would have thought was an integral part of success and all that. I mean, he would have, I just think he would have looked negatively on that situation. because he wanted to kind of be in control and have his hand on everything that was going on. But you know, I think a lot of programs have those guys. They have the Norm Ellenbergers and the guys that players, I think, feel like they can trust a little bit more. And, you know, Norm was definitely that guy for me. I'm not going to say everyone. It's not like we sat in the locker room and talked about, hey, you can talk to Norm about anything. He just kind of developed into that for me. He was assistant coach first, but he was also, you know, 1B. He was a real good person, a sounding board, and a person that would give me pretty good advice.
It's camping season for most sports. Camps coming up all around. Basketball camps. Jordan Hulls has a basketball camp. You know, back in your day, Coach Knight had his camp. Archie Miller has his camp. What was it like as a player being a part of those camps?
Well, you know, we didn't do that. When Coach Knight had his camps, none of the players worked the camps. So
really?
we never were a part of that. Now, I can tell you, I went to Bob Knight camp as a kid growing up, and that camp sucked. It was the hardest camp I've ever seen in my life. I went to 5-star camp. I went to some of the nationally known blue chip camps and some of those things, and they were easy. You know, there was a lot of games, you know, little drills here and there, but it was a lot of games and a lot of hanging out and stuff like that. Coach Knight's was the opposite. It was drills twice a day, and then you would, you know, get to play like a 15 or 20-minute game at night and things like that. Like it was boot camp, and it never stopped me from going. I went year after year, but it was not your typical fun basketball camp. It was pure misery. And
having gone through that once, you'd have thought that you'd have had enough sense not to come back a second time, but that's another conversation.
There was one year, Jim, that I went 2 weeks in a row after I had already been for a couple of years and knew how miserable it was. That just tells you what a glutton for punishment I was.
Yeah, but that tells you the type of players that were then and now too, though. To be honest with you, I mean, someone that has that kind of work ethic, that kind of dedication, man, I don't know that they have that today. I don't know if those kids have that in them anymore, that to that level. I mean, you're not the only one, but that's a shining example of exactly what we talk about. The typical Indiana kind of kid that I'm sure that they're out there, but man, they sure have dwindled in numbers.
Yeah, and you know, it's just there's a lot more things to do, I think, now for kids. I mean, back then, you know, when I wasn't, the 2 weeks I didn't spend at Bob Knight camp, I spent playing basketball at the gym or at the Y or open gyms and things like that. I mean, that's literally all I did. I wasn't, now growing up younger, I obviously played baseball and those things. And then when July came around, it was time for football. And so, I mean, I did those other things, but, you know, basketball was my love and it's what I wanted to do. And I'm talking about it, you know, 30 some years later, like it was a miserable experience. But believe me, I that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I'm the one who asked to go to camp 2 weeks in a row. And I'm the one that when I got home, that's pretty much all I did anyway. So, you know, kids are definitely different now. I mean, you know, I couldn't get my kids to go do that in a million years. Not a chance. They'd be there for 2 days and call me and tell me to come and get them. So, you know, it's kids in general, but it's just kind of the way that things are nowadays. I mean, that you don't have to have that kind of thing. There's so many different options, and AAU has taken over so much. I mean, you don't have to be on, you know, one of the top 2 AAU programs in order to play a whole bunch of games every year. Heck, there are so many teams. It's incredible. So kids just have different options and different opportunities now that we didn't have back then.
Coaching is something that I know you've messed with. You've done some of it, involvement in the AAU programs and things like that. But is that something that's ever been a pull for you?
It's something I wanted to do?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it is. Like that's probably one of the, if you ask me career wise, you know, what would I do different? And everybody would answer those questions with things they would do differently. But I would have gotten into coaching right when I got out of school. It's after I finished at IU, I went and played overseas for 2 years. And at that point I was just basketball burnt out. Like I was ready to, you know, settle down and start a family and get a real job. That was my 25-year-old naive idiot thoughts going through my head at that point. If I could change anything, I would have definitely gotten back into coaching and gotten into, you know, you've got to do so much grunt work for so many years. I mean, you don't just all of a sudden, most guys don't just all of a sudden say, hey, I'm going to be, an assistant coach at Michigan State. It doesn't work that way. You've got to work your way up through being a video coordinator and a manager, all different kinds of avenues you've got to go through in order to get to that coaching level. And I wasn't willing to do it at 25 years old. And once you get to 30, 35, it's too late pretty much at that point for you. So, that's a regret that I have. I wish I had gotten into coaching. I love it. I love working with the kids. I love seeing the teams get better. I think that was one of Coach Knight's big things. He loved watching his teams progress and get better and accomplish things that, maybe they didn't even know that they could accomplish. And that's probably coaching wise, one of the real benefits that comes out of it. And, I miss that. In AAU, I got to experience some of that, but I'm not sure mentally I was in the right frame of mind coaching AAU wise too. I was that crazy screaming, and anybody that's ever watched me coach in my first 6 or 7 years of coaching, they'll be like, yeah, that guy had no business coaching, because I was a nut job. But something happened, and I kind of woke up a little bit, and so yeah, real long-winded answer to your question is, yeah, I wish I would have gotten into coaching way back when, but I didn't, and that's just the way life takes you.
Well, now you can help out your old buddy Pat Graham down there at Evansville Memorial, as he is an assistant down there.
Yeah, I don't think Pat will be calling for my opinion all too often. Pat's done a great job with those guys. I've shown up down there to watch them, or not to watch them, but just to be around when they're when Pat's boys and some of the guys are out there working out, and they, Pat's a different guy also. I mean, Pat's different than he was at 23 or 24-year-old Pat, and he's enjoying it. The kids are enjoying it. I think he's having fun with it, and I think their team's had a lot of success based on him being there.
You talk about having two certain iconic coaching molds for him to follow. He played high school ball for Joe Hinton, and then for college for Bob Knight. So he certainly had some good coaching experiences in front of him. Good, and a lot of yelling. So he was used to it, I'm sure. Coach Hinton was. I remember meeting him way back when we were in school, and he was a fiery dude. So that was that. I'm sure Pat never really had the nurturing type of coach outside of maybe in like the 4th or 5th grade. After that, he had the screamers the rest of his career. Yeah, it was over. Joe Hinton, one of the most competitive people I've ever met in my life. Off the floor, he's like your grandpa. But on the floor, man, it's over. It's blood and guts. It's blood and guts. Did you follow now? A lot of athletes were multiple sports stars. Did you play baseball in high school? I did. I played baseball all the way up till my senior year. After I got done with basketball, I just didn't. I had planned on some recruiting visits and things like that, so I wasn't going to be able to play. But I had played all the way up my first 3 years, and I played football my first 2 years of high school, I think. And then I just kind of had to make the decision. My knees were hurting a little bit more, and my ankles were hurting a little bit more, and I just kind of had to make that decision to stop and play basketball and stop playing football. Plus, I weighed like 135 pounds, so it isn't like the football team was really, really disappointed when Todd Leary decided he wasn't going to not go tackle anybody anymore. Yeah, we don't see a lot of the multi-sport stars anymore, mainly because of the specialization, and everybody's focus is on a sport, man. I mean, my daughter plays soccer year round, and I would miss it. Luckily, I was in an era where everybody did everything, but I would miss it if I didn't get to do that. Yeah, no, I agree. I loved baseball games when we were playing. I have trouble sitting there watching it for 3 hours when I'm not involved in it. But playing baseball, I loved it. I always, heck, I wanted to be the pitcher or the catcher because I wanted to be involved in every play. And so, I had no business being a catcher. My knees already hurt and everything at that point. But it was really the only other way to be involved in the plays almost every pitch. So, I do definitely miss watching my kids play. I definitely missed playing baseball and football and some of those other things. It just is, I think it helps you learn the different styles of coaching and how, different coaches relate to their players and things like that. And the different sports kind of have coaches do that differently. And I think that's a good thing for kids to learn. But,
what you explained it exactly right. It's almost impossible now. I mean, you would have to be an unbelievable, you got to be like the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback that goes to Oklahoma that can also play baseball. I mean, you've got to be that good in order to be able to get away with playing both sports anymore. And it's so much more difficult to be an outstanding athlete playing more than one sport.
Well, Indiana's playing in the NCAA tournament. They begin today at 2:00 down in Louisville. Louisville is a top 7 team, but they won't play them until tomorrow if they win. But the NCAA tournament starts. Indiana's doing pretty well, man.
Yep. Well, they got Illinois State today. Is that who it is?
Yes, sir.
Yep. That'll be a good one. And, I know they were a little disappointed in the Big Ten tournament situation, but what an outstanding year they had. And I know you and I got to spend a little bit of time at a game down there one time, and I know you go to most of the games, but just a fun atmosphere. You can tell those guys enjoy playing and they like their coach, and they're gonna graduate and move on in life and remember an awesome sports experience at Indiana University. And that speaks a lot for the coach and the program and the school in general.
Yeah, and a lot of speaking of the facilities, all the facilities are at Indiana going through an upgrade, man. The locker room, I know you've seen the basketball locker rooms, but they're doing that pretty much to all the sports. Football locker rooms being redone right now, volleyball, wrestling, women's basketball, everything's getting a fresh coat of paint and new lockers and the whole deal. How important that is that to players?
Well, it's awesome from a player's perspective to have that stuff. And yeah, that's all great. But most of that's recruiting. Most of that is involved in, you got to compete with the Joneses of the world. And in that situation, you've got to have the best facilities if you want to recruit the 3, 4, 5-star kids in there. And as a player, once you're there, I mean, you don't have a ton of say in it. So you don't really, you just hopefully have some of the benefits happen when you're there. But it's so important when it comes to, every player comes in there wanting to go to the NBA or the NFL or whatever it is. And when they have the facilities there that are so impressive and so awesome and all the technology and all the different things that you can do, and they can help you with your schoolwork and all the stuff that is available to you, it's all part of the recruiting process. And you have to have that if you're going to be one of the nationally ranked recruiting programs every year. You've got to have those facilities in there, and Indiana is, they've done a good job, I think, updating them over the years. Now they're getting to the point where they're creating facilities that other schools will come in and look at and replicate. So I think Indiana's getting on the front end of having some of the best facilities in the country right now.
Are you getting the golf game brushed up?
I am getting ready to play with Pat Graham today in a Evansville Memorial golf outing. So I'm sure Pat will let me know. I haven't hit a ball in probably 2 months, but I'm sure Pat will carry us through the day for a scramble victory out here.
Yeah, that's just something I can imagine right now. You two on the golf course, how well that goes.
Yeah, if the competitive juices will come out, I'm sure. Pat will act like he doesn't care, but as soon as we get out there, we'll be trying to beat everybody. I can promise you.
Sounds good, brother. Hope you have a good day out there. Tell Pat we said hello.
I'll do it. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Hey, thanks for listening to the rebroadcast from today's edition of Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle, the only daily show dedicated to Indiana University athletics. You can catch us live each weekday on IndianaSportsBeat.com, TheDailyHoosier.com, GruelingTruth.com, or go to Spreaker.com for live notifications. Yeah, that's speaker with an R, SPREAKER.com. You can also catch the entire show any place you listen to a podcast, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, etc. You can find and follow the show on Facebook or follow me on Twitter at Jim Coyle ISB for complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers. Thanks again. I hope you have a great day. I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.